Hello everyone, and nice to meet you all here today. And first of all, thank you Sudha and Roxy for inviting me to speak and to womansplain today at IoT Day. I'm Viola, I'm a UX designer and I have career pivoted into AIX design. So that's why I'm here to share my story. But not only that, I was scrolling through LinkedIn and my co-student Kristine shared a post that she trained a machine learning model. So I got curious and I invited her here to share the story of how she trained a regression model in Microsoft Azure without being a data scientist. So let's dive right in. Let's hear from Kristine and let's learn how she trained the model. And let's share both of our career pivoting stories with you. Hi, Kristine.
Hello, Viola.
It's so
How
great.
are you?
Post and now you prepared it. I'm so curious.
I just followed a Microsoft Azure course. I found a course for free, by the way. It's called AI Fundamentals. And it literally walks you through step by step. Like it pretty much tells you, click this button, now next step, go here, now next step, go there. And so I followed the instructions. And so what I did so far is I have just prepared it to where I'm going to introduce the data set. So I don't know if you remember exactly what I said in the post, but what I did in that post was I trained a machine learning algorithm to predict bike rentals. So I gave it some data, historic data, and through that, it was able to predict how many rentals my pretend shop should expect in the next 5 days. So I'm going to walk you through exactly the same example because it's quite easy to follow, I think. What about that?
Cool. Yeah, and also I would love to have the link to this free course. That's beautiful. And before you show me anything, I have some questions actually.
Okay.
Maybe they're useful to go through beforehand. So for context, are you a data scientist?
Oh, no. I am researcher and I'd call myself data curious. And I just like to learn things. So there's somebody on LinkedIn shared that Microsoft Azure are doing these courses. So I thought, why the hell not? We are learning a little bit about AI through masters. And I thought, I had some downtime, i.e. one weekend. I thought, let me just have a look at it. And at first I was quite intimidated because I thought, oh my goodness, I have to be technical, but it is aimed at business people.
Yeah, thank you. Great. And how would you explain, you touched on it a little bit with working on algorithms. How would you explain machine learning to someone non-technical?
If I had to imagine that I'm going to explain it to my dad, I think I would say that machine learning is a way to teach machines to kind of think for themselves a little bit. It's a branch of artificial intelligence that allows us to build products and applications that are able to come up with conclusions and make predictions based on data. And the cool part about it is that over time, it is able to improve how accurate it is with its predictions. And it's not done through coding it to do that, or rather programming it to do that. It's done through it learning, which I think it blows my mind today.
And what is the difference? Like, have you learned about the difference between unsupervised and supervised machine learning?
I have. If I go back to explaining it to my dad, or maybe if it was someone just non-technical, the way that I like to think about it and the way that I understood it best is, imagine you and your dad bought a bookshelf from IKEA. And I say bookshelf because I've recently bought a bookshelf and I've had to build it myself. And in one instance, you've got a manual, you've got, all the bits and pieces laid out, you know exactly what goes where, and you've got your dad who's done it before. So your dad's like, okay, Viola, use this bit, and, start with it. And you kind of go, you follow the manual, you follow your dad's instructions a little bit, and you try a little bit. And if you get it wrong, your dad course corrects it. So that's what supervised machine learning is kind of like. On the other hand, if you were to be called by your aunt and your aunt's like, hey, Viola, I have a bookshelf that you've never built before, but come and help me. And you get there and your dad's busy, he's not available, and she's thrown out the manual, and you kind of have to look at the bits and go, well, I'm going to try and put this here, and I'm going to try and put that there, hoping that it ends up in a bookshelf. And if it's wrong, you kind of have to figure it out as you go. So that's a way to understand unsupervised machine learning, because there's kind of nobody who's telling you what to do.
Interesting example. That's so graspable. Thank you. I was wondering what kind of machine learning, you touched on it before, what kind of machine learning techniques are there, like other ones?
I think there are more than I am aware of, I'm pretty sure, but the 4 that I'm learning about right now are regression, there's classification, those 2 are supervised. And then there is clustering and there is anomaly detection, which are both unsupervised.
Interesting. And which one did you do with the Microsoft Azure project you did? Which one are you going to show me?
So far I've done regression, and that's the one I want to show you today. So that was the example you saw.
What is regression actually?
Regression is a machine learning technique that teaches the algorithm to predict a numerical value. So in the instance that, the example that I spoke of, where you've got some data and you want to predict number of rentals, you would use regression.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm curious what you're going to show me.
Yeah, so I am going to start from a point where I'm introducing the data. So I'm just going to show you. So this is the data that they have provided me with. You've got some information on, day, month, year, humidity, wind speed, and such. And what we're going to be predicting or trying to predict is number of rentals. And actually, it would be fun if maybe we can do a little competition and you can try and guess which of these values will have the biggest weighting to allow us to most accurately predict rentals.
I would say humidity.
Humidity. So let's keep a note. You think it's humidity. Let's see what the AI thinks. So far I'm introducing the file. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to find it. Open it. Next. I'm happy with that. This is not a tutorial. So if you want to do this yourself, I'd warmly recommend going to Microsoft Azure and just doing it yourself. But this is kind of, I just want to show you that it's very doable and it's not that intimidating. I go here, I should be able to get onto the fun part, which is training the algorithm on this data. So we are going to select this data set.
Yeah.
And then from here, I'm going to create a new experiment. And with this, we're telling the algorithm what we would like it to predict using the data. So in this case, we wanted to predict rentals.
Okay.
And here, the compute cluster is what I created just before you came online. And I created it just following the instructions from the Azure course. So remember, I told you we're going to do regression. So this is essentially where you would choose if you want to do classification or regression or whatever else. So in this case, we're doing regression. And then I just need to configure it. So in this step, we're going to tell it how to decide what is the accurate prediction. And then here, we are going to block every algorithm other than random forest and a slight GBM.
Ah, interesting. Okay, random forest.
this, blocking this.
Oh, okay.
These two. And then exit criteria. So this is where we define when should it stop. Because of course we're just doing it as like a dummy run. I'm going to say let's stop it after 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of actually a good thing to note is that Microsoft Azure gives you free credit. As you can tell, I'm on a free trial.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. That's great. So everyone could try.
I'm going to finish it.
Let's see.
Okay. So now, I think given that this is going to take a little while, this training of a model, it would be quite nice to talk about career pivots, because this is the topic for Sudha's event. I was hoping that maybe you can tell me how you found your way into UX and AIX, because your background is quite different.
Yeah, that's quite, I have to go a little bit back. Actually, I studied business management. I did a bachelor in business management, and I did I was always curious on marketing, how marketing works, and I did a semester abroad, actually in Barcelona, and the lectures I was visiting there, they made me so hungry on learning more about the circular economy and sustainability. So then once I graduated, I, of course, like you had your bachelor's done, you want to land a job, and I just started working in a wholesale for decoration. This wasn't quite matching the sustainability part, but I was happy to have a job. And yeah, I did this for 2 years, and I rotated in a lot of roles. So I went from like importing travels around the world, where we picked out decoration and we designed stuff. And I went to the internal HR processes, and I kind of learned a lot about the whole picture of how to run this wholesale business, this B2B business. But I was not quite fulfilled all the time, I have to say. And now later, when I look back to it, it's interesting to see how this made me come to UX. But I actually, I went last year, it was almost 1 year ago. Last year, I went to working in Switzerland, because from this importing group, there was another company that was further ahead in their digital transformation. And I was transferred there, and I was working there in order to learn more about the digital transformation in this industry. And I was working closely together, learning from this team that also included 2 UX designers. And I constantly found myself being curious about their work, like looking over their shoulders, wanting to do the same. And actually that hit me so greatly and hard that I decided to go for it. And I started like a boot camp in UX design, and this was making me so hungry about this field. And I like to look at it as a watch, kind of, because when I was working in business management, I constantly found myself, because I'm a person, I love problem solving and I like logical thinking, and I found myself trying to optimize like little gears in the business world, but I was frustrated because it didn't show a big impact on the big picture. And then knowing about UX processes and how you can, with like psychology, research, and business strategies, and also the new technologies, how you can like combine all of these things, and you can like shift and optimize all these gears in a watch, is like this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I actually landed in UX. And I'm so happy that I'm here, and now I'm like soon to be graduating from the master's, and that was my path, and I'm really happy I landed here. And
what about AIX?
So AIX is actually what I'm the most passionate about, and having learned from thought leaders in the field throughout my master's, but also aside from the master, I just want to step in their shoes, and I love the network of AI ethics. I love to learn from people like Sudha here, and I love this community in this field, and I think there's the deep need to shape the technologies of the future with the UX designer in the loop, and that's what I thrive for.
Amazing. It's a significant pivot from marketing and business into now hopefully shaping, you know, AI and machine learning and maybe voice UI and such. How did you find courage to pivot your career?
So yeah, that's a hard question. I think once I was at the moment where I understood business is not fulfilling me, and there's more to business than just knowing how to run business. There's more for the future to actually touch on these little gears to shape the businesses of the future, which also means the products which were going to be AI based and more. And I think once I understood that this is what I want, I got relieved actually. It was hard to pivot and to quit, and of course this is not easy, but once I knew I could tick this off my list and say, no, I want to go one level higher, and I want to work on the big picture. I was super relieved, and I also have to say my surrounding was always supporting me, because people around me, um, they constantly told me that I have to find the thing that I thrive for, because I have to do it for the rest of my life. And if something is not thriving me, I should question it. And also if it's thriving me, I should question it. But I was lucky enough to have like all the positive input I could get from my surrounding to take the courage and go for it.
Nice. Thinking back to, I guess, your recent experience with these technologies and all of this new field, what would you say has been your biggest surprise? Let's say in the last, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, you pick it, pick the time frame.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's a beautiful surprise, kind of. I know we work together almost every day, and I think once emerging in the world of UX, and not only in the masters but also in side projects, the ball just started rolling. And you have your network on LinkedIn, you talk with your co-students, you talk with your lecturers, and we got projects offered that we worked on over Christmas, and we're so passionate about this that somehow it feels like it's rolling quicker and quicker. And it's so beautiful that in such a short time I could evolve so much in my passion and profession because of this big network and people appreciating what we do. And I think that's a big surprise, and it's a beautiful surprise.
I think I share that as well. What are some bad recommendations or maybe bad advice that you hear in this field or this profession?
Yeah, there are multiple paths that will help you embark into this field, and you neither have to be an expert on all UX processes I just told you about, like this double diamond kind of thing. And like sometimes focusing on your niche and the thing that drives you is even better. And you can be a generalist in UX, and you can go out in the internet. There are so many resources. You can learn it yourself and just start applying it on anything you want and kind of making your own projects. Or you can also become a specialist and have a deeper focus on things you really aim for working on. And yeah, I think UX roles are super diverse, and no one should fear exploring.
And I also think that there are a lot of courses now provided by professionals in the field that share what they've learned through their time, maybe years and years of, trial and error, figuring out, building new frameworks. I know that Sudha has a ton of courses on AI. Yeah, I kind of agree. I do love going through the route of masters because besides the degree itself, it allows you to focus and kind of have the time to experiment, explore, maybe not worry about the fact that you've got to deliver a project that definitely succeeds. You can go through these academic exercises that allows you the safety of failure without really fearing of being fired. You don't have to go through the route of masters. You don't have to go through the route of getting a degree. I know that a lot of people, even in the more technical field like development, like coding development, they often are self-taught. So it's definitely for people that are curious of trying to pivot, the message they should take away, I think, is you don't need to necessarily financially invest so heavily or devote so much time or say to yourself that you can't do it just because you don't have the degree. You should definitely find an alternative route into this field. Okay, my last question for you is, so you and I have, it feels like we've been working together forever, but it's only been, what, 6 months? 6 months or so. What would you say is the one thing that you have learned that you will take away through the rest of your career?
I think especially working in UX, you get confronted by that nothing is ever reaching the perfect point. Nothing is ever becoming perfect because it's the process that has to be constantly applied. And a lifetime of getting feedback and growing your skills to know more about tools and technologies is so exciting. And I see that ahead of me in my professional life. And actually, I agree that like perfection is the enemy of good. And I have learned that like the community of UX and AI ethics and tech in general is super open to continuous learning. And even my mentor, Sudha, who has decades of experience in teaching, like at Stanford Continuous Studies, at the Barcelona Technology School, and even her own business school of AI, she often reminds me herself that she's also still learning. And I think that is a beautiful state of mind to constantly challenge yourself throughout your whole career.
I think that's wrapping it up nicely. So the model has been trained. I think we can take a pause here from the interview section. And now if I switch over to sharing my screen again. Okay, so here are the models that the algorithm has run through. And then if we have a look in the details tab, it should tell us the winner. And something that the course itself stresses is that this model is not the best model, it's just the best model that fits the requirements within the exit criteria, which was 15 minutes. So now we should be able to look at how good it really is. So here's this one, which is predicted value versus true value. And let me just expand this so we can have a look at it. So here, what you're looking at is this green dotted line, is like the ideal prediction, which would be always correct. And this blue line is where the winning algorithm ended up. So as you can see, it's quite close here, but not quite close here, and then kind of goes off a little bit here at the end. If you study this, then you can actually see that there's a correlation. So what you're looking at here is the amount of data we had available for values. And there is a correlation that the more data we have, the closer it is to the ideal prediction. And it's kind of logical. If you have only few data points that it can train itself on, it can't really figure out, it can't really figure out how to predict the data. Like here we have hardly any data, and therefore it's a little bit off.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then there is the other chart that we can look at is called residuals, which is essentially errors. And not to go into too much detail because I am not a data scientist, but what this chart is telling us is that majority of errors that did occur were small. As you can see, they're quite close to zero. And so we will go with this. And then there is another way to look at, and here is where our bet comes in. So if I go into explanation, I should be able to expand these. This is now going to reveal which was the data point that the algorithm deemed to be most useful in predicting the
bike rental.
Exactly, the bike rentals. Thank you. So here. And drum roll, please. So you said it was humidity, but it's actually working day. Let's see where humidity is. Oh, look.
Ooh, that was
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that we've got this model ready, we can deploy this so that we can actually test it.
okay.
Deploy it.
Then let's deploy the model to test it. I think as it might take a while, we can just go ahead because I have a bunch of questions for you. And yeah, we talk about career switching and everything. And I think it would be only appropriate if you take me on a spin of your career.
I think probably what's most relevant is, let's say 8 years ago, I started working in marketing, and I was kind of doing marketing analysis, creating campaigns and such, and we were using an internal tool. I am quite curious in understanding how things work. And so I quickly became the troubleshooter for my team. And what that meant for the internal product team that was building the tools is that they had like a layer of filter of queries, which meant anytime there was an issue internally within my team, they would come to me before they would log a request, which saved the team time. And it allowed me to be the point of contact between my team and the technical guys who I just thought are like the wizards, right? They know everything. And then through having built that relationship with the internal product teams, I heard that there was a junior product owner role open. And for some reason, I thought I should apply. And in hindsight, it was the best thing I've done for my career. Excuse me. So I applied for the role. I didn't know what the role was. I just knew that the role is in product team and that it would vaguely mean working on product, whatever that meant. I applied, I got it. And so through working as a junior product owner, what I understood is that there is so much that I don't know, that I'm working in a new field. I had very limited technical background. I had graduated from university with linguistics and some CSS knowledge, like it was my minor. I built a website overnight kind of thing. So I wouldn't call myself technical at all. And so that was extremely challenging, but I quickly learned that I should just ask questions. And it came quite natural. So for the longest of time, I didn't know what I didn't know, and it's quite scary and quite intimidating. But through just working with my teams and trusting them and kind of similar to you, asking for feedback and just to tell me what am I not doing right and what should I be doing better and how should I be doing it, I learned how to be a product manager and how to support my teams, because essentially a product manager is there to work with the business to deliver products. And the only way to deliver good products is if you've got a very good relationship with the teams that you're working with. And so I, for a number of years, for about 4 years, I worked as a product manager for various companies. I worked on internal tools, on APIs, with a B2C, on a B2C product, on a B2B product, on a B2B2B product, on a B2B2C product, kind of variety of things. But one thing I've quickly discovered that there was something missing. I never had worked with UXers up until the point where I worked with a very small team, and we had like an occasional UX designer who was helping us every now and again, but there was no other representation of UX at all. And it was through her that I learned about this thing called UX. And so I started looking into it, and I realized that that was the thing that I felt was missing. There was no decent customer representation. We weren't really doing research as much as I now know we should have been doing. We weren't really doing a lot of testing as much as I now know would be kind of practice to do that. So I started digging, as I normally do, digging into the topic, and I enrolled myself onto a micromasters through University of Michigan, and it kind of gave me a deep dive into UX research. Absolutely fell in love with it. I couldn't wait to just apply everything I've learned, and I became the one-man band, like a researcher, product manager, and such. And then one of the more recent companies that I worked for, a startup, they didn't have a researcher at all. And in that company, I was also working as a product manager, and I was fortunate enough that I wanted to transition into research, and the CPO of that company wanted a researcher. So I kind of went, can I do it? And he went, okay, yours. So I was working as the first and kind of only researcher. Yet again, realized just how much I don't know. And so because I was the only one doing that role, I decided to look for someone externally to tell me what it is that I don't know. And I just started to connect with people who I aspired to be like, or B, thought they had some information that they would be willing to share with me. And it would kind of through hustling, kind of through making myself available for conversations, or I at some point even said, look, I'm going to dedicate 2 days a week. They're yours for free. Just teach me what it is that you can teach me. I will do your work. I just want to know how to do it. And so slowly, I learned more and more about the techniques and methodologies and best practices and how other people do research. And I decided that what I really and truly wanted to do is work with someone who has done it a lot. Changed the company, worked with a wonderful researcher there who taught me. And yeah, at that point, I realized that learning on the job is great, but I was fortunate enough to both afford the time and financially to do masters. So here I am doing masters and running side projects such as trying to figure out this next thing, which is, oh my goodness, we're doing ML and AI, and this is incredible. Yeah, that's kind of, in short, that would be it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, and the important thing I can extract from it is like surround yourself with people you look up to and you want to learn from, and that's basically also the main thing I learned from you. Like, go out there and start this conversation, so you're constantly learning. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think you went through a lot of career pivoting, and this is also making you this unicorn. Like, being a product owner, you have such a strength in understanding all the stakeholders and having the conversation, and like being empathical not only for the user now in UX, but also to all the other people involved in the process. And I really admire that. That's beautiful. And seeing your long path is really amazing to see how you can go for it, and you just hustle for what you want to become. And I wish now me embarking in my professional life. Is there one thing you wish you had known at the start of your career that you want to share with me?
Probably the most impactful thing is to understand that it's totally okay to not have all the answers. In fact, there is no one out there that has all the answers. as you mentioned yourself, somebody who both you and I admire dearly is Sudha, and we think of her as this powerhouse of information, but she shares that she too is learning things, right? So the sooner you admit to yourself that it's totally okay to not know things, the sooner you open up to the possibility of learning and the possibility of allowing people to say, hey, I know, let me share.
Yeah. Yeah, and as we're here now in this career pivot path of the IoT Day, do you have any advice for other people than me who wanting to pivot their careers? Yeah.
Yes, do it. Don't wait. It's often really easy to just say, you know what, I'm going to start that thing after I do a course, after I read a book, after I watch this playlist of 70 videos on YouTube. Don't wait. Just go ahead and figure it out as you go. Just take one step, and then the next step, and then the next step. You don't need to know everything ahead of you. You can rely on the people around you. And if you want to read that book, read it on your break.
You don't have to be intimidated by anything. Now, we came across those working on those technologies as AI, ML, and UX because of Sudha. And I think one thing we learned is that just throw yourself in, even if you're intimidated. Like, try out things you feel like, oh my god, I can never do this. And when we just did it, and Sudha offered us this contact of Charles, we were all three of our team, we were intimidated by the fact that we have to do research on the AI of social media platforms. But we just said, okay, let's do it. This is something we thrive for. We want to build the products of tomorrow, and not like how content moderation is done in social media right now. And we want to tackle misinformation and everything. And I think this is something I also learned from you, to be okay with being intimidated.
Mm-hmm. I think intimidation is something that gives you motivation to try. If you're intimidated because you think you're going to fail, but maybe you also learn something. It doesn't, it's not that scary if you just look it in the face and just take the opportunity. It may not come again, so just take it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have one more question. I'm already super sad if we have to stop working together in the masters once we graduate. But what does your future hold after your masters?
I really hope that I get to work with a company that delivers artificial intelligence as a product to one extent or another. I am so interested in this field that I thought was completely inaccessible, and I have learned so incredibly much. And I think, as you earlier mentioned as well, that somebody with a UX background can really shape this technology in a way that I think if it's only technologists that are doing it, they may overlook it. They may not have the time to spend with customers to understand them better, to then build these technologies to work best for the customers. But I think working on a technology from a customer point of view, as a UX researcher, an UX designer, whatever you want to call them, would be very fulfilling. And I think you and I share this passion quite a lot. So I would be delighted to land an opportunity somewhere in that space.
I'm curious, and I know you always say, I'm not a tech person, and like I'm not a specialist in data science, and you're admitting things you might not know. But is there anything you struggled with the most in your career to date?
I think, as with everyone exploring new things, it is sometimes very intimidating. So it's easy to get stuck in just how much you don't know and how much you don't understand and just how much there is to learn. I struggled with imposter syndrome at the beginning of my product career quite severely. completely crippled me and started, I just did not know how to deal with the amount of unknowns. But slowly, just through kind of talking to more people, taking it again one step at a time, and I asked my team to teach me to be a better product owner, because I knew that they had specific needs that I was not yet able to identify. So they taught me how to write user stories, they taught me how to write acceptance criteria. And it's just about openly saying, this is an area I am not comfortable with, and then going to people that are comfortable with it. Hell, our final project involves NLP and GPT-3. Have I ever done it? No. Will I allow that to stop me from taking this opportunity and learning about it? Hell no. Because who knows when else am I going to be presented with this wonderful opportunity? So yeah, just that. Don't be afraid of the unknowns and allow yourself to explore things. What's the worst that can happen, right? You might learn something. You might learn that you don't like it. Great. Then you will find that it's not something you want to spend time on. Moving on. You might learn that you absolutely love it. So that's the passion you discovered just through the chance of allowing yourself to explore.
Yeah, I think I can echo that. Just constantly asking yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen if you do it? If you just jump into the pool of unknown and just go in. And I think that might help a lot to ask yourself if you're in front of a decision and you think like, should I do it? Am I good enough? Do I know enough? It's like, what can happen? What's the worst outcome? And just go for it. Yeah. What gives you that courage actually to try things you've never tried before? Like now, training a regression model, we're just waiting for the model to be tested now, and like you're changing your career from marketing to product. Where does it come from?
It's probably a healthy dose of curiosity to explore, resilience to just keep going. If you fail, just try something else, and maybe a healthy dose of ignorance. But it's not ignorance in the negative sense of it. It's kind of ignorance in the sense that I don't know that it's hard unless I try and I find out it's hard. If someone tells me, oh, don't do that thing, don't work on GPT-3, it's hard, it's not good enough. The person telling me their opinion doesn't know what my background's like, what my experience is like. So yeah, I think it's a healthy attitude. Just kind of put that aside. It may be scary, it may be hard, but allow that opinion to fester through experience as opposed to just someone telling you it.
And now we're here at the IoT Day, speaking about our career pivots, showing you this regression model, and it's so great to share all of this with you. But so I'm curious, Kristine, if you could get a message out to million or billion people, what would it say and why?
I think I'd have to paraphrase Shia LaBeouf. It's kind of, don't let your dreams just be dreams, and just do it. Yeah, it's just that. Just go for it. You have a chance, take it. Don't be afraid of it. And let me just now check on our deployment. Let's test it. Let's see what we made. Okay, so Microsoft course actually provides you with the exact code snippet.
You paste it in here?
I just need to paste it in, exactly. I don't need to do anything other than replace these two values here. Just to put here, here. So hopefully, moment of truth, if I press this button, we should be able to see prediction of the next 5 days for our bike rentals. So that's it.
Whoa. Yeah, so it's Saturday, Sunday, they will rent over 500 bikes a day. And okay, Monday it gets less interesting, Tuesday a little more, dependent on maybe holiday or the weather or anything. That's interesting.
Yeah, if we wanted to actually explore this further, we can look at specific values and how they affect this, and then we can try and understand why on day 5 it's less. But that wasn't the task of the exercise. We're just looking at the next 5 days.
That's really, really interesting, really understandable, and it's amazing. Thank you for walking me through this whole process. And I really now found the confidence just to shoot our own like spreadsheet about anything I'm curious about through this Microsoft Azure once I listen to the course. But it's great that you shared this with us. And
I would like to make a disclosure out there that it won't make you into a data scientist, but it will allow you to understand what data scientists do and also maybe how to communicate and best support them in a role of a researcher or a designer. I'm sure that a lot of people will find this quite interesting, maybe quite helpful, especially if you're in the business. And if I had to be a product manager on a tool that predicts bike rentals, I would want to be confident in that I am asking for things that are possible. And when a data scientist is talking to me, I can understand, oh, they're doing regression. What does that mean? I don't need to know all the ins and outs of how exactly it was predicted, but knowing that it was done through regression, I understand that, okay, it used an algorithm that was able to predict numeric value based on historical data.
And most importantly, the more people understand these technologies, like not into a deep level, but onto a level where you can understand maybe there's something going wrong, maybe there's something missing in the data set. So actually, the more eyes, the better, and the more diverse the people are working on this. If it is a product manager, a developer, or like a UX designer as us, it's amazing to share this in a team and to collaboratively try to make it the best possible.
Yeah, and also maybe understanding this a little bit better, people can find use for this technology in their business, maybe something that they haven't considered before because they were too intimidated. Well, now you can explore it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our story, for our career pivot, and we both hope that it gives you the courage to go for the things you thrive and you want to learn for, and to always stay curious and to constantly learn and not be intimidated by changing your career path. And we hope we can answer your questions. Otherwise, connect with us on LinkedIn, and we're happy to have a conversation with you. And we're always curious to learn about other career pivots and everything. And yeah, thank you so much.